Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Flight Pass. My name is Simon. We are in the Huey, and we're just to the south of the battlefield of Waterloo. Welcome to the stream. This is about flying. This is about using Microsoft Flight Simulator's satellite imagery and photographic imagery to have a look at the events of history and see if we can get a better understanding by actually being able to see the topography, the slopes, and the distances involved when we assess history. So we've been following along with the Napoleon all the way from Elba, all the way from Elba through to Grenoble and on to Paris, and from Paris we've arrived at the Belgian border, and he's now invaded. And the invasion into Belgium occurred on the 15th of June, so it's been 3 days now. And in the last stream, if you remember, we were just at the beginning of the opening salvo on the day of the 18th of June at this location here, which is the battlefield of Waterloo. So I'd like to, for anybody who's new to the channel, is it just a sort of a casual discussion that goes on here? Feel free to join in. Guy at the back's already here, and he is currently wearing nice snazzy orange. And you guys are, as you can see, you'll be the co-pilots. You're in charge of making sure I don't crash into things. And also, if you spot anything like a date wrong or a fact wrong, then let me know in the comments and I will rectify it. I'd just like to say, in the last stream, one of our new subscribers and followers mentioned balloons, Napoleonic balloons, and I did a little bit of quick research overnight, and it did turn out that there was a balloon used for reconnaissance at the Battle of Fleurus. Now, Fleurus, if you remember, actually we're just spinning around here. It was essentially the launching off point of Napoleon's army at the Battle of Ligny. And I believe it was in around about 1790s. The battle, it must have been the Revolutionary Wars, and there was a balloon used there. But it wasn't. It fell out of fashion, I think, pretty quickly, and it wasn't used much in the Napoleonic Wars. So that's a bit of a shout out there to one of the questions we had in the last stream. I think it's just because I think it had a lot of a baggage involved with this signal sort of balloon core that they had, and they probably didn't think it was worth it. But we do know that he made a scaffold at the time to help him see what was going on. I'm not sure that there was one built here at Waterloo, though. I don't think the slopes here helped. So yes, we're in the Huey, we're over Belgium, and we've got the live weather on. We'll keep the live weather on for as long as we can. If it gets too cloudy and visibility is too low, we'll kill it so that we can actually see what's going on. So you can join me if you have Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I'm on the European West server. I'm currently streaming now live on YouTube and on Twitch, but you'll find every 20 minutes or so I'll do a little bit of a break, and that'll be my chopping points to bring up these episodes on YouTube. We're getting to probably around about episode 70 odd now for that, so you can see the sort of pace that we're going. And yeah, it's never edited, so the flying shows I'm talking live. If you want me to go left and go right or the other way around, you'll know that I'm talking live. It's not edited. I mean, and I'm leading a discussion, and the whole idea is that you can join in and be part of the production of this channel. Thank you very much to the people who are following. Check the scores on the doors there, and some sort of target is needed. We're on 75 now, so we've had one more person than the last time we showed that one. And on YouTube, I'd like to say thank you to the 30 astounding people on YouTube for joining in. Right, that's enough opening waffle. Let's carry on with the main waffle. We're going to be talking here live probably for around about 2.5 hours, so come in and say hello. If you miss anything, you can just go back and watch it from the beginning. And where did we get to? Well, we got to the opening shot. Now, when was that opening shot? Well, there's a number of reports. For example, this one here was from a Lieutenant George Gawler. He was of the 52nd Regiment, and he wrote in a letter in 1834. He said that we heard the first cannon shot of the battle fired in the direction of Hougoumont. An officer near me pulled out his watch and said it was 20 minutes past 11. So that's one account. So, okay, it can't be that difficult. It must be 20 past 11. We then have another one here, which is from Lieutenant John Pratt. He was from the 30th Regiment, and he wrote in a letter on the 23rd of March, 1835. He said, about midday, rather before 12, the first shot was fired. It was the first report that reached my ears that morning and was directed against masses of infantry moving on Hougoumont. The enemy's artillery did not reply for some time, but we could see them distinctively taking up their positions immediately in our front. So that kind of fits in with this story of it being somewhere between 20 past 11 and 12 o'clock. This is Hougoumont, by the way, and so he's talking about the British infantry, British artillery, who are probably up here on this ridge behind us, opening a fire on these advancing French columns over here. If I just jump out here, by the way, just talk about Hougoumont, and I have mentioned this before. So Hougoumont is here. It's a chateau. It's a walled chateau, very common in this part of Belgium at the time, and it's got so it's a walled buildings, barns. It's even got a chapel inside it. There's a gate here at the back. I can't quite see it. It's been in here. And there's a gate at the front. Some buildings have been destroyed and haven't been rebuilt since the battle. In this area here was orchards and walled garden. Then there's this clearing, and then there was this a wood here. Which was basically extends forwards in this field all the way, probably up to around about this point here. This wood has been described, and we described it in the last episode. It's a copse, it's a worked wood. It's not got much undergrowth to it, but it has got enough foliage and tree cover for the French not to be able to see the chateau from over here. We also just discussed the howitzers. There was a couple of howitzers with the French, I think maybe more, but on this side definitely there was at least 2, and they weren't used. And people asked, well, why didn't they just lob a howitzer in there? They had it on their maps where the farmhouse was, but they couldn't actually see where it was, or then they couldn't then direct their fire once they started firing. And most of the cannon that they were using at the time are firing in a flat directory, so it wasn't easy to use. So this wood had to be cleared basically by infantry. We get another report here by Lieutenant John Pratt, and he mentions then when the French actually do start opening up on their artillery. And he says that the there was a tremendous fire along the entire extent of the left centre of the position, but chiefly directed towards our batteries. And that makes it sound like the fire was pushed over the other side of the battlefield. So I don't know what he means by the left centre. If we're looking towards the British, then it would be here. Otherwise, if he's talking about his positions, then it would be more likely to be towards the left-hand side of this farmhouse here. He goes on to say several large shells also fell with precision into the midst of us, but the ground being soft generally buried themselves deep and did not do as much mischief as under other circumstances might have been the case. Of course, we were talking, we know that, you know, the rain had poured down on the 17th and it rained overnight. So this field, we mentioned it being some sort of like a silty loam, especially it's kind of a limestone kind of landscape, silty loam, thick clinging mud, especially in these low depressions here. So the French artillery is hitting this ridge, which you can see here, and basically the cannonballs are plugging into this area. Our friend Victor Hugo in Les Miserables, he mentions Hougoumont. Hougoumont was the fatal spot, the beginning of the resistance, the first check encountered at Waterloo by this great butcher of Europe called Napoleon, the first knot under the axe. So this is seen by both sides as a very pivotal point, and that becomes a focus of fighting throughout the day here. Okay, so let's spin around. I'm going to flip between the helicopter and the drone when we need to see some detail. If any of you have specific wishes to see an area, then just give me a shout and we'll fly over. When we're talking about the Napoleonic Wars as well, and the battlefield, you remember that when we're talking about infantry, there's usually a cloud of skirmishers in front of both lines, tirailleurs on one side, and skirmishers kind of on the Anglo-Dutch side. The French tended to use smoothbore muskets that had less impact, but were probably quicker to fire than the Brown Bess, and of course then the British and the 95th Rifles and the King's German Legion would be using these Baker rifles that were much more accurate. And these clouds of skirmishers are going forward. They're harassing the lines. They're trying to pinpoint officers or important members of artillery batteries. They're trying to deny areas to the enemy, and there's this whole sort of cloud going on, and this is what we get essentially along most of the front line at Waterloo. And Hougoumont, because it's a chateau and it's got some defensive positions, is basically filled up with these light skirmishing kind of troops. And the in front of Hougoumont, the woods, it means that the most of the action is conducted by light troops, because you can't keep a formation through these for the trees, so they're not using this sort of impactful sort of column marches at all. We're just coming over Napoleon's headquarters at Le Caillou, and we'll head towards La Belle Alliance. Down below us here is Place Noire, and we'll be talking about that later. But we're going to start concentrating over here because the first attack from Napoleon is on basically Wellington's right flank. It's not. So Rail is instructed to send a division over of his corps to assault Hougoumont, and this is when Jerome Bonaparte's batteries will open up in preparation for them moving forwards, and a cloud of skirmishers will enter this wood just here, in this direction here, heading towards the chateau, not really knowing what they're facing at this point. This wood below us, so there's a division is sent in here. There's some cloud of skirmishers. It takes about an hour for them to get through the wood itself. And so the allies in this area, let me just jump out here, we can probably chat about it a bit better. So their Rail is sending a division down towards Hougoumont. There's a cloud of skirmishers. So where does he start from? I think it's probably in this area here. We're on, just get our bearings. So this road is, we can basically call it almost the sort of center of the battlefield. Belle Alliance towards La Haye-Sainte. And then this is Rail's corps on this side, and he sends a division down here. Jerome starts firing as well, presumably up on the artillery positions up on the ridge on the right-hand side, clearing the way for the troops to move forward. First of all with a cloud of skirmishers, and then with about 4 regiments of infantry moving in there. The wood probably begins around about here, and as you can see, you can't see Hougoumont at all. So we are now inside the wood, probably heading. Just going to try and get heading towards Hougoumont. So this is where the French skirmishers moving in here, and there's a dogged defense. There's a sort of a, you know, it's a cloud of Allied and Dutch British troops in here skirmishing. It's almost like a delaying tactic, really, and they weren't. They didn't believe they were going to keep this wood. And then once they get through this wood, the French, they start coming out the other side, and what they are met with is this cleared land here, which is this section here. So this is the edge of the wood we're on now. They come across here, and then you can see the walls there that go around the orchard to the north of the Chateau of Hougoumont. And when they arrive here, this is when they are greeted by sustained volleys of musketry fire from these walls. If you interested in this, there's and I did mention it before, there is a Waterloo, I think it's called Waterloo Recovered, or Waterloo, something like Waterloo Recovered. It's an archaeological charity dig place where they have come down here and they've done a survey, and they can see this concentration of musket balls in this area down here, which is pretty cool. I'll have to remember the guy. I think he's from Sheffield University, but forgive me, I can't remember his name. I will try and find his name later. But you can check that out. You can search for Waterloo archaeology, and there's a whole time team thing goes on here as well. But you'll see this interesting section here, and all along here they did a survey of musket balls, and you get this sort of clouds of French balls and Allied balls. They're different sizes, and so you can see who's firing where at what point. Now, if you the whole point of this battle, why does Napoleon begin his attack here? Well, we know that Wellington is still sensitive to his right flank. His whole demeanor during the whole of this campaign, his so-called lack of urgency to get down to Quatre Bras was all based on his belief that the attack through Charleroi, up here, was either a feint by Napoleon, or it was a pinning action, and that his real intentions were to come possibly through Nivelles, or more likely through Saulniers, up through Mons. And even at this point, he's got 17,000 troops in this area here of Hal and Tabriz on his Wellington's right flank, almost 10 kilometers or more on his right hand side. So Wellington, this position here, which is the position where we are is somewhere down here. Let me find that. It's not appearing on this. I think it's here, down here. This is so this position here is Hougoumont. It's on Wellington's right flank, and it shows it's a strong position. With the 17,000 odd troops that weren't used at all over at this area in Tabriz and Hal, it shows you basically that Wellington was still concerned about being outflanked to his west, and he's concerned about that because he doesn't want to be cut off from, first of all, his supply route to Ostend via Ghent, and more importantly, his supply route via Antwerp. The last thing he needs is the French to pin him here at Waterloo and actually send most of the troops up, probably to Ternat, and then try to cut off the British from their supply route and safe port at the fortified position of Antwerp. So it seems to me that Napoleon has got Wellington's psyche in his head. I think he's also got a very good spy network, and he's been providing, getting good information, and also providing the information back to along the lines to that, so Wellington hears that the things that Napoleon wants him to hear. And so his right flank is important. So Napoleon begins his campaign by doing the one thing that probably Wellington doesn't want, and that is to be turned on his right. And he's doing this for a simple reason. He needs Wellington to start committing troops from his center. He needs him to start moving troops down to his right flank. So he begins on that extent over here. Now, it's believed that one thing that Napoleon wanted to do was commit enough troops so that it forces more of the British troops to be pulled in than he's supplying. But the problem is that it goes slightly wrong. Jerome Bonaparte's instruction to Reille had been to press the attack, and not to press the attack much further than the wood. He wanted it to be a visible force coming down here, and give these and not press past this wood. But what happens is Reille begins to add more and more troops into this sector here. So what's happening is that rather than them pinning Wellington and trying to draw his reserves in, what he's actually doing is putting more of his troops in, and where it then turns into a big scrap through the whole day, where actually more resources are being piled in by the French than there are by the British. So it was kind of the reverse effect that was going on this side. And so people talk about how this feint by Napoleon had actually didn't work on Wellington, but it worked on his brother. His brother believed he was more important than, and so he believed this part of the battlefield was more important, so he was drawing in reserves from the from Reille's corps rather than from as much from Wellington. So Jerome is coming here. He's pulling in more and more troops in this assault. He's not using howitzer fire. So the because presumably because they can't see where the fall of the howitzers will land. But what's happening is that these tactics he's using is pretty unimaginative. It's just piling more and more troops in, repeated attacks, and the British in this position. They've got the cover of the wall. They've got firing holes and firing steps. They're bayoneting down. They're firing their muskets down, and so they're managing to defend this position along here. Okay, so as I say, every 20 minutes or so, I'm going to take a little break. So we'll go into a break now, and when I come back, we'll continue talking about this section of the battle. If you've enjoyed this, then leave a like, leave a subscribe, a hug and a love and all that sort of stuff. And I will see you back. If you're watching live, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. If you're watching later on YouTube, you'll see this will be in another episode following on. Thank you very much, Guy. Yep, that was a painting of the lonely tree in Snowdonia of Wales. And by the way, all those all the bits of music that you hear in the intervals is by me. You can check it out. The name of the band is Ipiraten, spelled capital E, capital P, Iraten. Go and find the music on Bandcamp, or you can hear on Spotify, and that's another great way of supporting this stream, just by giving that a like. So, welcome back, everybody. This is Simon, and we're talking today about the Battle of Waterloo. We've had the opening salvo and the initial attack by the French on the chateau of Hougoumont. Now, Hougoumont is just below us over here somewhere. I'm just gonna wheel around. Let's talk about Hougoumont for a little bit. Actually, let's. This is a Hougoumont farm just here, where the cursor is right now. This is basically a large farm. It's part manor house. At the time in 1815, the building here is around about 200 years old already. And it was designed, these farms were designed to be in a sort of courtyard, semi-fortified buildings. If we just pause here and jump out, just going to have a quicker, a closer look at it. Inside these courtyards, it had which is at the far end here, by the way. This is the sort of whoops. Let's look down now. You can see the courtyard. This is the sort of complex here. Whoops. There we go. And what you've got is a manor house, a farmhouse. This little building. Just whoops, wrong way. This little building here is actual chapel, and so it's kind of like a enclosed little sort of community. There's a large barn. There's this is the chateau part here, and it had farmers' dwellings, and all the buildings are sort of connected with high walls around. The roofs and the floors, they were made of wood, and so they were combustible. But the walls themselves are made of brick, stone, and were pretty much resistant to artillery fire of the day. I mean, if you concentrated over a long period of time, you'd probably get through, but you know, it would probably stop a cannonball to begin with. The grounds which we're talking around about this is kind of like an orchard. It had a wall around it, and around the wall was ditches. It was kind of their method of, because it didn't have barbed wire, ditches were a good way of keeping cattle in an area. This wood occupied was in this area here, and these had some very large trees in it. So it disguised where the position of the chateau, as I said, and it was difficult or near impossible for any French artillery to fire from up here and hit the chateau itself. So the formal garden, which I think there might have been an orchard over here as well, but this formal garden here had a 6-foot high wall around it. and banked up with the ditches. And the other key feature of this battlefield was this area here. Now, it's not so easy to spot, but I believe somewhere down here there is what was known as the sunken lane. I think it was called the Hollow Way at the time. It basically ran down here and then up onto the position here. It's probably maybe this road here. You might be able to see elements of it. This bit here might show some. You can just see, I think there, look, the way it dips down. I think that was a sunken road. It was a hollow way, and this basically enables the British to bring down ammunition and reinforcements and be protected from the French in doing so. Now, Victor Hugo, we love a bit of Victor Hugo here. We mentioned, he said, Hougoumont, this is the fatal spot, the beginning of the resistance, the first check encountered at Waterloo by this great butcher of Europe called Napoleon, the first knot under the axe. And he goes on to say, this bit of earth, could he have taken it, would perhaps have given him the world. So it was a very important position on the day. The fight for Hougoumont actually began on the 17th of June when Wellington was pulling back to this position. Then the light companies of the four guards regiments were sent down here to occupy the position, and in so doing they actually had to push back a French unit, a small French unit that was trying to occupy the position. And so two light companies of the First Guards under Lieutenant Colonel Lord Saltern managed to win that skirmish here on the evening of the 17th. And then they managed to occupy the orchard and the eastern part of the woods here. Two light companies then of the Second Guards under Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald. They move in and occupy the walled garden and the buildings in the western portion of the woods as well. Early on the 18th, Wellington is obviously concerned about this position, and he then moves another 2 units forward in support of these 4 light companies. And these were the 300 Hanoverian riflemen and the Nassau battalion from the Saxe-Weimar Brigade. The Nassaus appear to have been deployed in a line behind the hedge at the southern end of the pasture, and the Hanoverians were held the southern border of the woods. So I'm not exactly sure where the edge of the woods is. I believe it's here, where this darker patch is, and so this is where the Hanoverians were lined up. And when we talked about Wellington, he was up, got up in the morning, came down, and he started riding along his position, trying to assess the what happened. He actually comes down to Hougoumont to review it. And is believed to be around in this area somewhere, watching the preparations of the French. And he believes that it's said that he sees Rail's core deploying between. He says it's between the Nivelle and the Ginap Road. So I think that's the road that heads down towards Nivelle. And so where he's saying is basically he's seeing him forming up in this area here. Now, Rail's core had at least 3 divisions in it, and so what we get is Jerome Bonaparte's division formed up on the western side, so we're talking over here. We have Foy's division in the center, and then Bachelu's on the eastern side. And remember, these are the divisions that had fought at Quatre Bras on the 16th. The Nassau's, I believe they were also a unit that fought on the 16th. There was only they were in this area here, and they believe that they were only around about 300 yards away. So we're talking possibly trying to occupy the woods here, like they had done at the Bossu Wood at Quatre Bras. And but they were their morale had been hit hard, and they were verging here on panic when they're seeing 3 divisions lining up in front of them. And it's believed that Wellington had to come down here and personally sort of boister them. And there was reports at the time that when Wellington was down here and talking to these Nassau's, he then turned to ride back up the hill. And as he turned to ride away, someone, one of the Nassau's, shot towards him. Actually discharged their musket towards him. Whether or not it was deliberate or not, or it was just a loud shot into the air, or it was just someone clearing their musket, which was common in the morning when they were trying to prepare. The Duke himself, the Duke of Wellington himself, took it as a unintentional discharge, whether he needed that message to be spread because he didn't want to appear unpopular. The point being is that shot possibly, if it was intentional and it had been aimed, could have ended the Duke of Wellington's life here, and that might have made changed the course of the battle without Wellington's personal sort of touches and moments during the course of the day. So, yeah. Wellington moved back towards into Hougoumont. We're talking just before this the fighting begins, by the way, and he's talking. He checks on MacDonald's preparations. He checks on the banks, the parapets, and the loopholes that have been made in the walls, and apart from the gate here, which is this corner here, so apart from that gate there, all the other gates are blocked and barricaded. And flooring had been removed from the buildings to build these parapets to allow the troops to stand up and fire down and bayonet attackers on the walls. And so yes, so the fighting has begun. Another example of the times and what time they will change and differ. Hill, he says that he had. I took 2 watches into action with me. On consulting my stopwatch after the battle was over, I found that the first gun was fired 10 minutes before 12. So that's another time. So we've now got 3 times, 3 mentions. One is 11:20. One is some time between 11:20 and 12, and now we've got another one that's saying it's 10 to 12. So we're looking at least a disagreement, but around about sort of 40 minutes before 12 o'clock. And that's when the first attack, artillery bombardment begins, when the French attack here at Hougoumont. So, as I say, the most western division of Rail's division, which is commanded by Jerome Bonaparte, which is an interesting choice, begins with him attacking forwards. Of course, this is Jerome Bonaparte, so the name is... I'm not sure, you see, whether this attack is meant to be full force or is meant to drag so many resources into it from the French perspective, but we can discuss that later. From Wellington's position over here, so we believe Wellington was probably in this area, maybe. Looking down, then he sees, from this position, he can see the French moving down towards Hougoumont here. And that gives him the impression, this is his early movement, early on. Remember, he's worried about his right flank here, and his first movement of the French when he's looking over this way is movement of troops to his right. And that is a big worry for Wellington. Captain Thackwell, he was of the 15th Hussars, and he wrote a letter in 1834, and he said that I witnessed the advance of many heavy masses of infantry which attacked Hougoumont, although soon after the firing began, the distant movements of the enemy's column were from this part of the position but indistinctly seen owing to the smoke which hung lazily on the surface saturated with rain. So I'm not sure about whether these trees behind here, by the way, were here at the time. But when the attack begins, then the heavy, thick smoke begins and starts concealing the position. Now, Jerome's division moves forwards. By the way, this is all woods here. And of course, they're preceded by a cloud of tirailleurs. These and the nervous Nassaus, as we like to we'll call them now, who are in this position, perform pretty well, actually, delaying these French skirmishers. They had jittery nerves, but the British had managed to place small pickets of their guards in amongst them to help steady them. Maybe that was something that Wellington requested. So you have these sort of nervous troops that you're not sure of, but there's smatterings of veterans with them to steady their nerves. And remember the 300 Hanoverians. Now they're equipped with these hunting rifles. They're kind of Jaegers, are kind of hunting guys, and they're starting to inflict some serious casualties. Now this is I believe it's like a thick wood, but the undergrowth isn't so great, and so they're able to shoot individual soldiers through the trees. Now these troops are not reinforced, so it's obvious that Wellington had no intention of defending these woods so far forwards. It's too far forward of his line, so this is more of a case of delay than anything. So the light infantry here are skirmishing, denying position, delaying tactics. You know, and at the end of the day, if you think about it, this division of Jerome's is moving forwards, and it takes them an hour to get across this wood to this gap here. So they're doing their job of delaying, and that's what they're there for. And so Wellington's allowing his light companies to fall back and in front of the division, and then they get back into the ward section here. And so the French would come out of the wood as we described, and they will pop out here. And then this is where the main killing ground begins. This wall now is lined with the two light companies of the Guard, Second Guard, Hanoverian Riflemen, and the Chasseurs. They've all gone back over this wall here. You're getting reports here that the French were moving up to this wall, trying to grab the muskets, pull the muskets down off the Allies. But the first wave is repulsed, and they push the French back, and they come back into this wood to reorganize. So that's the sort of first phase of the battle for this part of the Battle of Hougoumont. Right, that's another little 20 odd minutes or so. So this would be the end of this section, and thank you for watching this far. When we come back, we'll carry on into the second phase of this battle at this end of the Battle of Waterloo. So again, I'd like to thank you for watching this far, and if you have, you're a special breed. I will, if you're watching live now, I will be back in a couple of minutes, and if not, I'll see, if you're watching on YouTube, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Welcome to Flight Past. You find me in the Huey here, and we are flying over the Chateau of Hougoumont on the battlefield of Waterloo. We're following, or have been following, Napoleon's journey all the way from Elba. He left Elba on the in February 1815, and he gets to Paris on the 20th of March, and it's called the 100 Days because it's the 100 days that he's in charge again, from the 20th of March to when he is exiled, abdicates in late June of 1815. Now we are here, we've been talking, we're on an episode God knows what now, on YouTube, and we chat here quite slowly, flying the Huey, checking out the battlefield and looking at the lay of the land and how it's affecting the decisions that were made. Now, in the last part, we were talking about the first phase of the Battle of Hougoumont, and how the Nassau and the Hanoverians and the Guard light infantry were holding up Jerome's division over here at Hougoumont. And when they had got through the woods to the walls, so we're talking here, this is where Jerome's divisions started from. They came through here, and where Dot is now would have been a wood, and they pushed these light infantry back to the wall at Hougoumont just here. And here is a line there where they will pop out, and they would receive the musketry volley fire of all these guards and Hanoverians and the Jaegers and people like that. And that repulses the first attack. Let's just jump out. So that repulses the first attack from the French. And that first attack really is just a sort of a probing attack. It's because of these trees in this area here, or the woods here, it's not clear exactly what the strength of the position is here at Hougoumont. So it's the first phase. It's kind of like, just gauging it, but it's one. They're knocked back, and this wall here is very important. So in the second phase, then we're talking. Wellington is to the northeast of Hougoumont, and so we're talking up here. This is the ridge of Mont Saint Jean. So we can imagine that Wellington is up here somewhere, and he's looking down. Let's assume he's around about this position, maybe over here. He's looking down that way, and he can see the French movement. So over there on the far horizon, the first movement of the day of the French is to his right. So he's concerned about that, because we know he's really, really, really concerned about his supply lines, and he's paranoid about his right flank being turned. He orders at this point Bull's battery. He's got some 6 5.5 inch howitzers, and he wants Bull's howitzers, which I believe is somewhere in this area, to lob some shells over the heads of the defenders, and presumably into the woods. So when he's clear that the woods have been captured, he then asks Bull to start firing on the position. So we know that the French came in through the woods, clearing out. They've got a cloud of tirailleurs clearing out these woods here. They're doing their darndest to be delayed by the Anglo-Dutch army, and they get to this point here and pop out of the wood here, and they receive the volley fire from that wall, which we can see there. and they then press back into the wood, and they're going in this point where they're trying to reorganize. This is when Wellington starts ordering the howitzers down onto the position. And this enables the Allies to push back into the woods. Actually, they start harassing the French back again, and reoccupy some of the ground again, forcing the French again to fight to win this part of the field once more. So it's always trying to essentially delay the attack on this side for as much as possible. So they reorganize. This is Jerome's division, and about half an hour later, and they reorganize and enter back in again, and they are actually reinforced by some elements of Foy's division. So over here we've got Rail's corps, and you have Jerome on the left, Foy in the middle, and Bachelu on the right hand side. So already by the second phase, there are elements of Foy's division being dragged into the fight here at Hougoumont. So once again, Lord Salton's light companies, the First Guard, they're pushed back from these woods here. There's some orchards around here as well, and they're forced back into this area here. And this strip of land here, I believe, they called it the Protective Way because it's a sort of a it is like it is now. There was no trees at this point here, and so it was kind of a killing ground there. So they call that the Protective Way. So if we mention that, then that's the sort of place that we're talking about. And so again, once again, these light companies are pressed back by the reorganized Jerome, with elements of Foy's divisions pressing in and forcing them back, basically, essentially into this enclosure here. This is known as the garden wall here. So any French that try to come in this way, trying to follow Sultan's men, would be attacked through there. Yeah, so the orchard actually extends this section here. So if you imagine essentially this area here extended out, probably actually to somewhere in this area here. So this sort of walled garden here is kind of the center of the position, and then you have it's almost like an extension out this way. This here looks like the edge of the orchard coming out this way here, like this. Now, we talk about, you see, the tactics at the time for Napoleon is to draw, is not, well, one, he wants to attack this position because it does threaten Wellington's right flank, and it would be a great position that if they took this, then they could then obviously threaten his up the ridge on this side here. If it doesn't work though, and it's not 100% successful, what he definitely wants though is for Wellington to move reserves from his centre, so in this section here, to Wellington's right. And we start to get the an inkling of that at around about this time. So the French attack second French attack is coming in. The second phase is occurring, and the Guard light infantry are pulling back into the orchard and into the garden here. And Wellington sends down 4 line companies of the Coldstreamers, and they're essentially coming in to protect the orchard here and secure the eastern flank of Hougoumont, which seems like a decent plan. It keeps these Coldstreamers sort of your you know, within touch of his centre still, but it has meant that he's had to send troops down forwards to his right there. So it's beginning to show cracks, and the plan of Napoleon beginning to work. And the French, during this attack as well, have decided also to come around from the actual western side and to begin to probe along the western flank here. And they're looking for weaknesses in the structure, and they work their way around. And they find that this gate here is blocked. But this gate here was being used to resupply the farmhouse. Colonel Seymour mentioned in letters to Cyborn that ammunition supplies were arriving late in the day, and Macmahon describes a cart of ammunition arriving here around about 1 p.m. and it had come down this sunken hollow way, which we can just see remnants of here. Possibly comes down here, and then they could get in the back of Hougoumont this way. We then find one of the famous episodes here was by a guy called Legros. He was a sous-lieutenant Legros of the 1st Leger. He was nicknamed L'Enfoncière. He takes an axe and begins to weaken the bar, which crossed this gate. And he led a charge into the courtyard here. MacDonald and several officers and Sergeant Graham managed to close the gates, replacing the bar, and the French that had got in were trapped and killed, apart from I believe like one small drummer boy who they spared. And James Graham, Sergeant James Graham, he would receive essentially a pension in 1817 for being the bravest man at Waterloo for shutting that gate. So Wellington had been sending down these coal streamers to drive the French back, restore the situation around the north and west sides of the chateau complex. And once these French got pushed back, the coal streamers would then enter the complex here and added their numbers to MacDonald's garrison. And so we believe at this point then that there's around about 600 troops now stationed in here defending this place. Okay, and the third phase of the attack, they push in, the French push in, they manage to take the orchard. They sent down a massive tirailleurs down the eastern side of the hedge, and then they could fire into the flanks of the defenders here. But they were also receiving fire from this eastern wall of the garden. Wellington then sends another 2 companies of the 3rd Guards to drive down the tirailleurs from this eastern hedge. And that then allows the eastern side of this orchard here to be retaken once more. But again, we're getting, you're hearing this. He keeps sending troops down here. So this is what Napoleon wants. He wants more and more reinforcements to be sent down in this direction. So MacDonald, by this time, in Hougoumont, had received 9 out of the 10 companies of the coal streamers. Thank you, Michael. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Let's jump in the helicopter, do a bit of flying. So yeah, so the Napoleon is trying to get Wellington to bring his reserves in, and of course this is what's starting to happen. These guys, the Coldstreamers, are not they're not troops that you want to use sparingly. They're some of the best troops that he's got. So when he does send them down, he's sending them down for a specific purpose. And that job he wants doing has to be done. And so these guys are the ones who are sent in. And as I say, MacDonald now at Hougoumont has received 9 out of the 10 companies of the Coldstreamers. And the 10th company was the company that held the colours that were remained on the ridge behind. So 6 companies of the 3rd Guard were also moving into the orchard, and by this action, Wellington's committed all of the available support in the immediate vicinity to the garrison, apart from 2 companies, one of the 3rd Guards and one of the Coldstream Guards. And so with the 2nd Line Battalion of the King's German Legion, the light companies of de Plat's brigade we talked about, the Nassau and the Advanced Guard Battalion, the Brunswickers, and they completed this garrison over here. Now these guys, are, the majority of them are not weak, they're not, they're reliable, they're very good, they're veterans, and it just goes to show the importance that Wellington places in to this position. I do believe as well he's sending forward these troops to secure this position, because obviously this is essential, but they're also disciplined enough that when push comes to shove, he could probably pull them back in a disciplined way to his centre. And from the French perspective, this is the third phase now of attack on this position, and they have found it difficult to be coordinated. They found it difficult to fight through the woods. They're finding it difficult to come around and attack through the orchard. They've tried to do an assault on this side here, and almost got in, but didn't quite. But they're receiving, they're exposed, their flanks have been exposed, and they are receiving heavy casualties here. And at this point as well, I think Wellington is looking to adjust his line again. He's bringing further support across. He orders Hugh Hougoumant's Hanoverian Brigade and Mitchell's part of Mitchell's Brigade to move across from the east of the Nivelles Road to the north of Hougoumont and along the lane from the chateau to the road. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is the Nivelles Road here. You can just see it moving off into the distance here. Ignore this modern road. And so he's saying he's moving troops. I think what he's saying is he's readjusting them by moving them back across this way, and into this sort of position here. He orders the 1st Battalion of the 23rd into line and deploys them directly north of Hougoumont Gate to protect the access point. So he's starting to protect the entrance into the chateau in this area here. Now this is this battle we talked about at the beginning and around about any time between 20 past 11 and 12 o'clock, and actually precedes the battle anywhere along this line by about an hour and a half. So this is the main start. So it's kind of like the first jabs, first round, trying to probe and trying to see what the reaction is of your enemy. This sort of seesaw fashioned battle occurs all day long over here, and to the point as well where in a certain sense it draws a lot of the French reserves in. We talked about Jerome being the main division to go in first. Then Foy starts to support him. And then later on, we then get Bachelu's battalions coming from this area here and moving across as well to support. The actual manor of Hougoumont itself was never actually captured during the fight. So none of the buildings were lost. Here you can see though that there isn't a building. There was buildings here, but they did start to use howitzers eventually and try to set these buildings on fire. And this is where we have this one burnt down. But the fire of the buildings was an inconvenience, but it didn't affect the outcome. They could move people away from the fire. And the ones that were set on fire tended to be on this side here, which wasn't the main defensive positions. When the fire did set out, Wellington was over here on his ridge. We believe somewhere along here. We don't know where exactly, but he had a view of Hougoumont. Let's pretend he was somewhere in this area here. He could see the farm, or at least where the trees were. He could see the position, and he writes a note. He says, it's quite funny because he's obviously if you receive this note from your commanding officer, you probably say no shit Einstein. But he basically says, and I quote, "I see that the fire has communicated from the haystack to the roof of the chateau. You must, however, keep your men in those parts which the fire does not reach. Take care that no men are lost by the falling in of the roof or floors, and after they have fallen in, occupy the ruined walls inside the garden, particularly if it should be possible for the enemy to pass through the embers to the inside of the house." I mean, it's kind of like, teaching your granddad to suck eggs. It's don't be in a burning building, will you? But anyway. It gives you sort of a little bit of a insight into Wellington's man management and delegation skills, I suppose. But it also shows that he is there. He's on that front line. He can see he's with the people, and even though the note probably doesn't help at all, it definitely shows that he is in a position to at least come to some sort of order some reinforcements in whenever it's needed. But we'll see with Napoleon that he probably wasn't spending any other time actually on the battlefield. He was probably couldn't see things, so he wasn't taking so much personal control. Right. There was a number of wounded who were burnt to death in this fire, by the way. And we will find that this position gets more and more isolated during the day. When we get to the French cavalry attacks, it means it becomes almost impossible for any more reinforcements to be sent down. But it did bring in a lot of reinforcements. But what was clever about Wellington, I believe, is that the reinforcements he brings in is in this area here. And this becomes important because the troops that are in this area here, supporting Hougoumont on this side, defending, helping cover the resupply route into it, but essentially protecting the orchard. These troops here will become important later in the battle. When we get to the later stages. Right. On that note then, that's another little section there. We're going to go take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll just wrap up some of the information on this Hougoumont side of things, and then we'll start looking at the other areas of the battlefield itself. But it's important to understand that this is the place where it all begins, the battle, and it also is carrying on most of the day. So it's an essential part of it. Okay, so if you like that, do the thing, like, subscribe, hug, love, and I will see you in a few moments. Welcome to Flight Past. My name is Simon. We are in the Huey, and we're over the battlefield of Waterloo. We've got live weather on, and we're talking. We began talking about the opening sequence to the Battle of Waterloo, and it is all around the chateau of Hougoumont. And it was a number of phases, a seesaw kind of battle going on, and it happens all day long. I just thought we'd have to finish this discussion about Hougoumont, because it will be going on all day long. But what it has done is essentially it manages to occupy Rail's core. The divisions of Jerome, Foy and Waterloo are all drawn into this battle for this chateau down here below us. And there's a belief that Napoleon wanted to do this thing. He tends to do it where he will attack on one side or one flank to pin it. He's essentially trying to force the hand of Wellington to move his reserves down to support Hougoumont, because he knows how paranoid Wellington is about his right flank. He's paranoid about his supply lines to the ports of Ostend and Antwerp being cut, and that would basically be the end of his army. And so he's playing on that by initially sending in Jerome Bonaparte, his brother, by the way. So it's it seems like a sort of a blue ribboned event in the scheme of things, to do his bidding. The problem is what happens is that the hubris of the French, or the lack of imagination of the French Rails Corps means that more and more French troops are drawn in, and we're flying now on this sort of axis. They're drawn in towards this. It's like a sort of a fork that's jabbing you here. This thing that sticks out, this defensive position, and it draws in 14,000 French troops into this area, and the 1,000 odd troops that are inside the chateau. Some of the best troops that Wellington's got, by the way, in terms of light companies, are defending that position, and that position as well is has drawn in something in the region of like 3,500, 4,000 sort of troops. Wellington has sort of given in and has sent them down his some of his best troops. He's sent down 9 companies of the Coldstream Guards, and more of the third foot have moved down into this area. But if we come back and have a look at this, this is the chateau below us. Lots of the support he's been sending down has been coming down here to support this eastern flank, and these orchards are here. So they are within contact distance to back up to the ridge, and they become important later on. Just a quick, so that's Hougoumont then, and we will now, let's talk about the initial bombardment, by the way, that occurred, and the French had a way, it was called a ripple fire technique, and this was designed so that the smoke could clear, so that the gunners could see where they were actually firing at. So they would have a 24 gun bombardment, and it would be in a sort of a ripple effect, and it would allow then the smoke to sort of clear away, and allow the continual firing and observation of targets. They tended to fire shells first to get a range, and then they would then load solid shot afterwards once they had that. Sometimes they would actually load 2. They would have shells and a solid shot involved, but normally it would just be, once they got their range in, it would be a solid shot fired. Now what we're looking down here now at the French positions, and the line of artillery would be along this line here, heading across towards, this is La Belle Alliance, so we're looking at the initial positions along this section here. Mercer, by the way, reported in his diary say that he was actually busy digging up potatoes when he hears the first heavy firing occurring. And they were behind here at the time. He remembers limbering his horses up. Remember, he's a Royal Horse Artillery guy, and he comes up this road. He meets Major Lloyd. He's in a state of agitation, explaining that his brigade's cut to pieces. And Major Lloyd asks him to bring his guns up with him, presumably one of these roads here, to the ridge. He describes at the time, Mercer, as well, that he asks his troops to form a line. He orders his men to dismount and to reduce the liability of being hit by shot and shell that were coming over the ridge and plunging into the soil around them. And this is the point as well where he mentions seeing the Duke of Richmond and his two sons who had come down from Brussels. And remember, the Duke of Richmond was the host of the Duchess of Richmond was the host of the ball that Wellington was attending on the night of the 15th. Mercer at the time describes being given orders to move up. The Lieutenant Bell, an adjutant, had brought the orders to him. He was to move up and along the hollow behind the second line, and he remembers at this point seeing they were aware of several infantry corps who had lain down, and so presumably what he's being asked to do is to come up essentially to this ridge here. In fact, let's just jump out, and we can see this is the ridge. So he was asked to move forward. He comes up from the farm at Mont Saint Jean, which is probably this place here. And as he's coming up in this area, then he's describing literally thousands of men who are lying down, trying to keep out of the way of the bombardment. Says when he was brought up here as well to the ridge, they said that they could see a line of lancers formed up, threatening the right flank. So we're presumably we're talking over here. They describe how they could fire on them if they wanted to, but they were ordered not to return any fire. He described that there was some French artillery to the right of the lancers. And according to the memoir of Napoleon, these lancers are mentioned as being part of the Second Corps, formed up in 3 lines across the causeway from Nivelles, and they were accompanied by a battery of light artillery positioned on the causeway itself at the line of the first woods of Hougoumont. Right, well, what does that mean? So you're talking here, Second Corps, Rails Corps. They talk about a causeway. Well, this looks like a sort of a causeway, like a ridge along here. And there's a light artillery position on the causeway itself at the line of the first woods of Hougoumont, which I believe then is probably in this area here. This the woods of Hougoumont is actually where this green rectangle is here. This section here was actually woods, so it would make sense that your artillery would possibly be around here on this ridge. Now this, I'm not sure if this set of trees was here at the time, but we have Mercer presumably somewhere in this region here, who's been brought up from Mont Saint Jean, and he can see those artillery pieces where that green line is across there and in the distance. He describes these artillery by way of Mercer as 4-pounders, and that they were firing on him, but they weren't reaching them. But they were not given orders to fire back, and it's one thing that Wellington didn't like. He didn't like counter-battery fire, because he felt that the French would always win that, and if it came about and it revealed their positions, so he literally wanted his artillery to save their ammunition and wait, not fire on anything over on the other side of the ridge there. They would just wait for the infantry to come to them. Now, Mercer is Royal Horse Artillery, so his kind of job is to sort of ride up and down this the line, trying to go wherever there's a crisis. Though he does describe at this point that these shells are not falling near him, they're falling short. He talks about that if they did get their range right, then the shot was almost like a howitzer shell. But he does also mention that he's getting harassed by artillery coming from his left. So if you're here and you say you're left, it's probably you're talking in this direction here. So we could assume that there was more artillery in this area here, near La Belle Alliance, and they're firing up onto this ridge here, so that this is why the troops behind this ridge are lying down, trying to protect themselves. Okay, so we're gonna leave Hougoumont right now, and so you got a flavour of the battle that's going on over here. You got a flavour of this to and fro thing happening, and Wellington sending down reinforcements when needed, but trying not to do too much. We've heard that Mercer's kind of coming up and looking at this position. So let's go back to probably around about 12 o'clock. So we're talking just after the first attack goes in at Hougoumont, and at 12 o'clock we get the news that a Prussian hussar is captured 3 miles to the east of La Belle Alliance. And so a cannonade has begun, signifying the attack on Hougoumont. I believe that cannonade has started across the whole of the line. And over here then, a Prussian hussar has been captured. So this means at 12 o'clock, Napoleon is in no doubt that his right flank, there is going to be pressure from the Prussians. And even Lieutenant Colonel Weber Smith, he was a trooper in the Royal Horse Artillery. He, in a letter to Captain Walcott, he describes, "We could at this time distinguish a stationary picket or a patrol of Prussians with our glasses at a considerable distance on an eminence to our left." So St. Lambert is this place here with the blue tick. The weather's closing in today, but we'll keep the live weather on for as much as we can. So this is the position where the Prussian hussar is captured at 12 o'clock. So yes, the battle has begun. Is it feasible that Napoleon could delay or stop the attack? Possibly. Now you can see this from this position. This is the Paris Wood, and we come up onto this sort of, I suppose, open plain ridge, Mont Saint Jean Ridge. As you can see now, is on this. If we get down low, we should be able to understand why they call it a ridge. You can kind of see how it looks there. So we're talking here now that when this Lieutenant Colonel Weber, Captain Walcott writes this letter, he must be over this side of the battlefield, and he could see Prussian pickets coming out of the woods over here. So these are the sort of reconnaissance units of the Prussian army. Presumably it's Boulou's corps, and they're the ones who set off early in the morning, and they were trying to get here. So at midday, the pickets have got essentially to those woods just there. Now the cannonade has gone up, the firing's happened, and of course then we have Grouchy, and this is when he hears the first salvos of the battle, and his subordinates urge him to march to the sound of the guns. Now Grouchy refuses, says his orders were explicit. They were confusing, let's put it that way. They weren't very clear, but because of Napoleon's way of setting up his corps and his sort of semi-independent system of command, Grouchy sometimes wouldn't be completely in understanding of the whole situation, the sort of strategic situation that Napoleon wanted. And of course, remember, anything that happens here, the information that gets to Grouchy now, it probably won't make any difference. Now, Grouchy is over here in the distance, and what we could do is we could just fly over there. He's at Walheim, and actually I'll get a map up here so you guys can see how far that is. So Waterloo is number 6, and Lasner here is Chapelle Saint-Lambert. This is where the Prussian Hussar is found at 12 o'clock, and this is the Ohain is probably where the edge of the wood, the Paris wood, is where the Prussian pickets are seen. And when Grouchy hears the guns, he's here at a place called Walheim. He'd moved up to this crossroads on the evening before, and he was now moving north towards Wavre itself. So he's 16 odd miles away at this point. So you could argue that even if he set off straight away at 12 o'clock, he's probably not going to affect the battlefield today anyway. Let's head over to see where he was, and we'll finish this part of the stream when we get to Walheim. So he gets chastised over the years for his caution. Let's think about what he's got. He's got about 30,000 men, and he's following an army of 75,000 men, trying to find out where they're from, where they're going. He doesn't know. He's accidentally moved further east, I believe, than he should have done. He should have immediately gone north rather than chased anything to his south, because they weren't going to be a part of the problem. But he was ordered to follow the Prussians, and he even said that he was following them to Wavre. He could have immediately cut across, but it would have been difficult terrain. This is the terrain we're flying over now. It's difficult terrain, trees, deep valleys, and swollen rivers. Remember, it had been raining a lot, just like it is now. And remember, by around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Grouchy's probably pleased with what he's achieved. I mean, he's been following the Prussian army. He gets to Wavre. We'll see what happens, but essentially he manages to defeat the corps of Thielmann's 3rd Corps of the Prussian army. And he's had a pretty successful day, apart from he hasn't managed to prevent 3 corps of Prussian armies joining up with the French, with the Wellington. And any message coming across here from Napoleon is going to take at least 4 hours to get over here. So essentially the move that Grouchy had done the previous night meant that he was not going to get across to Napoleon. And so you'd actually sort of say, okay, well, to be honest, if that's the case, Napoleon should have been aware of that and made his decision whether to attack on the 18th based on that. So Walheim is actually here, so you can see the distances involved. And you're asking for him not only to come to your aid at Waterloo, you're also asking for him to essentially be marching across the front of the Prussians. So, in my personal view, I think the orders that Grouchy were given weren't clear enough. When they were given, they weren't very clear. They were they could be open to interpretation. Grouchy probably wasn't an experienced corps commander, and he wasn't told to march towards the sound of the guns, and so he's definitely made out as a scapegoat, I would say. So we get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Marshal Ney reports to Napoleon to say that de Erlon's preparation, this is the corps that's on the right-hand side of Napoleon's front, they are ready to assault. And when we come back, then we'll start talking about the attack of the French First Corps under d'Erlon. We will be back in a few minutes if you're watching on Twitch Live and YouTube Live. If not on YouTube, I'll see you in the next part. We have follow a goal. We're on 75 at the moment on Twitch, so actually we may be now on 76, but it seems to be very important that Twitch gets me to 80. That would be lovely if you could do that. On YouTube we're on about 30 at the moment, so again, if you'd like to subscribe, you will be one of the early people who will be pioneers in this channel's history, and you can always call yourself special, and I will always call you special, and I will see you in a couple of minutes, and we will come back with the at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the Battle of Waterloo. See you in a moment. Hello everybody, welcome back to Flight Past. That track, by the way, was called Rain, which is my music, and you can go and find that if you want on Bandcamp and all that. It just happens that we've got the live weather on, and we're over Belgium, and it's you can see the showers coming down here now. Anyway, welcome to the channel if you're new to the channel. My name is Simon, and what we do is we use Flight Simulator 2024 to have a look at historical events, and it's a little bit of a sort of a lazy chat about history, so please join in, say hello, and do all that good stuff, and support the channel by being part of the production. That'd be really cool. As I say, we're flying here into this big cloud bank of rain, and on the other side of this we should come to the battlefield of Waterloo, and we left it in the last section, and Ney, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Ney has decided, he told Napoleon that d'Erlon's corps is ready for an assault. And Napoleon comes forward at this point and does a sort of a sweep of the battlefield along the horizon, and he does this because as soon as the bombardment of the Grand Battery begins, which will be the precursor for the advance of d'Erlon's corps, and the divisions of d'Erlon, it means that the smoke will just wipe out any vision, and you'll have something like this, which you can't see anything. So when Napoleon does this sweep of the horizon, and he sees a black cloud emerging from the woods of Chapelle Saint-Lambert, which is 6 miles away on his right-hand side. And he says at the time he can't distinguish whose troops they are, but we know, and I think we know, and I think he knows, that these troops are Prussian, and they're not going to be Grouchy. Now, we've just flown back from where Grouchy is. We're in the Huey here, coming across, and the woods which he's talking about, where they're popping out of, is here. This village here is called Chapelle Saint-Lambert, and this is the area where he's talking about. Now, this rain is going to make it quite difficult to talk about this, so I may just switch it off now as we approach. Let's just see if we can. I'm trying to keep it live. I'm trying to keep it real. We'll stick with it for a bit. If you're new to the channel, then please go back and watch some of this stuff, because we've covered a lot of this area before. I'm going to keep it live for now. It seems probably the best thing to do. But this here is the woods where Napoleon essentially sees this cloud. And this, remember, this is at 1 o'clock. And around about this time as well, a Prussian cavalry subaltern is brought to him, and he actually has, it's believed, is actually carrying a letter from Boulou to Wellington, reporting that the Prussian 4th Corps is arriving here. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But the cavalry officer himself says to Napoleon that the whole army passed last night at Wavre, that they've seen no French. They've seen no French, and he believes that his patrol was basically to come and see if the Grouchy had crossed over to Plancenoit on his right-hand flank. Regardless of that, and we know that when Napoleon hasn't seen Grouchy, it means that at this time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so he's only started the attack on Hougoumont about an hour ago. He is now aware that the Prussians are on his right flank. He knows Grouchy is not on his right flank because he had received a letter from Grouchy at 11 a.m. that was written at 6 a.m. to say that he was over at Walheim. And it's believed at this time as well that Sue writes back to Grouchy, and he says, "Your movement from Carbois to Wavre agrees with His Majesty's arrangements." Now let's pause there. Let's jump into the map, and let's find this place that they call Carbois. So Carbois is this place here. So essentially what Sue is writing back to say, and this is the order, he says, "Your movement from Carbois to Wavre agrees with His Majesty's arrangements. Nevertheless," he carries on, "the Emperor requests me to tell you that you must keep manoeuvring in our direction and seek to draw nearer to the army before any corps places itself between us. I do not indicate any special direction to you. It is up to you to ascertain the point where we are, to act accordingly, to keep our communications, and to see that you are in a position to fall upon and annihilate any of the enemy's troops which might try to molest our right." So he's saying, so if you receive that then from your Emperor, and they say that your intention to move from Corbeil to Wavre is, the first line is that it agrees with His Majesty's arrangements, then that's what you're going to do. Yes, he's not aware at this time that the Prussians are going across to him. So, that's again, it's one of these woolly kind of messages that you don't really know what he's trying to tell you to do. Then he goes on and he mentions too, in the same dispatch, he mentions this letter that they believe that they've intercepted from Waterloo to Wellington. And he says, "A letter which has been intercepted tells us that General Waterloo is to attack our right flank. We believe that we can perceive his corps on the heights of Chapelle Saint-Lambert," which is, first of all, in terms of the map, we're here. And I'll just get rid of that so you can see, which is this place right in front of us here. And then he says, "Therefore, do not lose a minute to draw nearer to us and crush Waterloo, whom you will catch in the very act." So that seems like... So it starts off saying, follow him to Wavre, then it's definitely, oh no, come across and capture Waterloo's left flank as he tries to cut across. But this letter, these orders, or whatever you want to call them, that was sent at probably around about 1 o'clock, don't reach Grouchy until 5 p.m. And when it does find Grouchy, Grouchy is actually engaging Thieleman's corps up here at Wavre. So it's in a sense, it's way too late. So the argument is basically saying, even if he had then been able to, he was free to march, Grouchy would have probably not managed to get to Waterloo until probably midnight. And essentially, so what's happened is that the Prussians have come over here, and they're on their way across to this battlefield, and 3 corps are on the way, and and they're marching unmolested. Yes, the conditions are difficult, and it will take longer than they would hope, but they are coming out of these woods here onto this plain here, and at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, definitely by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Napoleon is aware that the Prussians are on his right flank. So again, he could have looked into Grouchy's positions, done an assessment of where he was, and instead of sending that letter to Grouchy saying cut across to us and cut off Bulu, he could have said, we are looks like we've been outdone here, and we could pull back, and we will pull back, say, to Genappe, and you are to come and join us there. But it's not. That's not what Napoleon wants. He doesn't want these two armies to join up. So it goes back to when the lethargic morning of the 17th, and the sort of the lethargic nature of Napoleon on that morning of the 17th, when he didn't pursue the Prussians urgently, when he seemed to be having some sort of medical problem. There was an opportunity then to press the Prussians much more urgently, and they didn't do it. And at that point, then this whole campaign is lost. Here, then you get to the sense that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, with the corps of rail already engaged over here on Hougoumont, it's got to I think a decision that Napoleon's just going to have to say that we're going to have to fight, and fight quickly. We've got to go in now, and this is when we get to the point where d'Erlon's corps starts to be engaged in the battle. So I think this is when you also see a change in the nature of the day, in Napoleon's demeanour. He's facing the realisation that his plan of campaign is unravelling. He's got the almost impossible decision to make about either continuing the attack or try to separate his army from the battlefield and manoeuvre it again to attack the Allies afresh. Now, I suppose when you're in this situation, you're thinking, well, how to disengage your army from Wellington. You know, you're not. You're open. You've placed your troops in the open. You're very visible. It was meant to be an intimidating maneuver to put all your corps along this line here below us. You know, to pull these troops back is going to be very visible. It's going to be a lot of organisation is going to have to happen. There's going to be a huge amount of congestion on this road back to Genappe. Where do you go? Do you try to go just backwards? Do you try to move sideways? Do you try to move? You can't move right. I would have thought that these woods over here would be a terrible idea, so you'd have to go backwards first. And of course, then all you're doing then is allowing the army of Wellington and Blucher to actually come together in a very strong force to push you back. So it's almost an impossible decision to make. And so it's probably right that you just go for it at this point. You just go, right, okay, I've got to defeat Wellington on this ridge here as soon as possible, and hope that the Prussians don't get enough numbers to you. So from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the nature of the battle in terms of the French is now desperate. The time is running out, and he needs to get a move on. And of course, even if he does win this battle, even if he does get on top of this ridge and force Wellington back, he's got to have 2 or 3 corps of Prussians coming on his right flank. So you could argue that the defeat is almost inevitable at this point. It's believed at this time as well he turns to Soult, his chief of staff, and Napoleon says to him, and I quote, "This morning we had 90 chances in our favour. We still have 60 to 40, and if Grouchy repairs the terrible mistake he made in amusing himself at Gembloux and marches rapidly, our victory will be all the more decisive, for Boulou's corps will be completely destroyed." Now, again, it's always take some of these statements with a pinch of salt, and they may have been written after the event. I think the best he can hope for now, though, is that if Grouchy is doing what he said, then the mere threat to the left flank of Boulou will be enough for him to pause and not get his troops onto the battlefield as quickly as possible. And this is when we believe that Lebau's 6th Corps is brought up, and he starts making maneuvers to try to block Boulou's path onto the battlefield. So this is the first action orders that have gone out to basically start to use his reserves up to prevent the Prussians threatening his right flank. So 1:30 then, after all this arrangements have been done and the letters been sent out, and maneuverings of reserves and bringing up Lebau's corps, we get to the point where the Grand Battery cannonades, begins the cannonade, and Wellington's artillery respond immediately to it, and this cannonade begins and lasts for about half an hour, but we know that the effects essentially are pretty minimal on the British line. The troops are protected by the slope and the sunken lane. Let's just jump out here. Let's go and have a look outside for a bit. So it's likely that the French artillery are in this area here. And we're firing up on this ridge. Now, one of the we say it didn't have much effect. But there was one, and that was Balant's brigade. Now, Balant's brigade was somewhere in this region here, and they were forward of this ridge, which we see here. And for some reason, they've been left exposed. Why would they do that? You would put a battalion, or you put troops visible up front because you want to give the impression, basically, that there's more troops there than there are. So Wellington, if it was a deliberate ploy to have them here on this forward slope, is basically to try to suggest to Napoleon there's more here than meets the eye. But the cannonade that fires up here, but as you can see, most of this area down here is in a reverse slope, and with troops lying down, and with the state of the ground, you know, the effects are minimal. Now these guns, we believe there's about 88 of them over here, and they can fire at around about 2 to 3 rounds a minute. So boom, 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 and the sound of the guns carries to Brussels. Now Brussels is right over in the distance there, where that grey area is there underneath the cloud. That's the beginning of Brussels there. So the noise of the battlefield reverberates all the way back. They actually say that some of the windows shake in Brussels, and even people in Antwerp said they could hear the cannon. Now, so we're talking all the way back here. The Kentish Gazette reported on the 20th of June 1815 that a heavy and incessant firing was heard from this coast on Sunday evening in the direction of Dunkirk. So we're even getting we can hear it over the channel in Great Britain in the British Isles. So we're talking that the sound could come from Dunkirk direction. So they're talking, you know, over here. They could hear all the way across there. So tactics on the day then, and at the time, is usually that the cannonade would signal, would begin, and then that signals an infantry advance. And the British tactics at the time would be to stand in line in order to present the maximum number of guns presented to the enemy, and the French would advance in columns, essentially in these sort of large formations of column that keeps the troops together. They're basically acting like a battery ram to come up this slope here, and just the weight of numbers to push back the infantry up here. And what you would try to do as well, you'd have cavalry on the flanks of the infantry, and this is to force the lines of the British into square, and that then reduces their frontage for being able to fire at the advancing infantry. And then if you then bring up artillery, then you've then got infantry trapped in a square formation, which is vulnerable to artillery, vulnerable then to the infantry, and if they broke out of the square, then they're vulnerable to the cavalry. I'm just going to run through. What I would do, we'll have a little pause here. And then what I'd like to do is just run through some of the defenses on this side of the battlefield, the eastern side of the battlefield. We'll talk about Le Haisson, we'll talk about the gravel pit, and some of the hamlets over here of Papelotte and La Haye. And then we can then go, begin the second phase of the battle, which would be the attack of the corps of de Erlon on this side of the road. So don't go away, we'll be back in a second if you're watching live, and if you're on YouTube, and we'll be back in the next part. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to thank you for taking part. Please like, subscribe, and do all those other things, and I'll see you in a moment. Welcome to Flight Pass. My name is Simon, and we are in a Huey helicopter over the battlefield of Waterloo. And it's a strange combination, I know. We're using the flight simulator of Microsoft to have a look at these historic moments. The satellite imagery that Microsoft gives us enables us to get a one-to-one recreation of the Earth, and then we can then use that then to fly around and have a look at the terrain and see how that would have affected the decisions made on the time. Topography, distances, slopes are all very key, and especially during the Napoleonic period. The understanding of topography, the understanding of distances are really, really important. So we left the last part and we were talking about the second phase of the battle. Ney had basically reported back to Napoleon to say that the de Erlon's corps is now in position, and they were over here, where this white dot is here, and they were ready to begin their attack. And initially there was a cannonade, and we talked about how the cannonade was so loud. There was even reports in the Kentish Gazette to say that the rumble of cannon fire could be heard coming from in the direction of Dunkirk. So it was going all the way across the channel. There was people saying that they could hear it in Antwerp, and people in Brussels said that the windows were shaking in Brussels from this cannonade. And the cannonade was coming across from over here where my dot is now, aiming down to the British positions below us. And we're going to fly around in the helicopter for a bit. We jump out every now and then if we want to get closer. So let me know if you do want to get closer to anything, if you want to see something from a different angle. Let me know. We can jump out, we can use the drone, we can use the helicopter, we can do all that sort of good stuff. You can join me, by the way, if you have got Flight Simulator. We are on the European West server, and if you just go to Brussels, you'll see me flying just to the south of Brussels. So let's swing the Huey around, and we'll then fly along the direction of the cannonade. So the Napoleonic tactics at the time is basically to use it's all about intimidation. He's brought up his troops, he's showing his troops, he's showing his strength. He's now got the cannonade, and it's all about trying to break the resolve of these Allied troops up on this ridge. So we're here now, and this is where the French cannon are. Let's dive low, let's get a bit aggressive. And they're firing up here onto this ridge just here. Now the rain has it's been wet a lot of the time. Yesterday, or the 17th of June, it rained, and then on the morning of the 18th it was rain. So the cannonballs are hitting quite sodden ground. The soil is quite a sort of a silty loam. It gets quite sticky, and the reverse slope here is also protecting the troops, enabling them to they lie down and can protect themselves from the cannonade. Right, let me just pause here, and we can jump out. And I said in the last part that we look at some of these positions. This is the battlefield here. We were talking about, we've looked into Hougoumont, so if you, that's the position, the field, the forest on the right hand side over there, and that's where the beginning of the battle occurred. So if you want to watch that one, you can go back and watch it. Previous parts, we've done a lot of discussion of that. And then in this bit here, we're going to look now at some of the defensive positions that were here in the center, and especially this place here. This is a farm called La Haye Sainte. It's a quadrangle. The farmhouse is on this northern side. You can see it here. The farmhouse on the left there, and with the western side, which is on the right hand side as we look, is all stabling parts of it. It's sort of cow sheds, stables, and then there's a large barn on the south side, which is the furthest side where we're looking now. We had a large wall over here, protecting the eastern side of this position, and it's very similar to Hougoumont. These are these sort of almost semi-fortified sort of farm dwellings that you get in this area. The center of this wall had a piggery. It had a lean-to. It might even be that building there. and it's believed that one calf lived in that building during the course of the battle. On this side, actually where these trees are probably, was an orchard. And to the north, it's still there. It looks like there is an actual garden, a kitchen garden. And there was a gate here. Oops. On this side, as you can see. This is on the eastern side. On the western side, there's a gate as well, over here. So there's opening on the house. Comes through, obviously there's a door, goes through. And straight into the yard. But one of the doors, I think, the barn door, I think, had been removed and burnt by the redcoats in the previous evening. Now, unlike Hougoumont, the preparations here are not so extended. So there's we're looking at a letter from Lieutenant Graham. He was a member of the 2nd Light Battalion of the King's German Legion, and he wrote a letter in 1842. In it he says, and I quote, I saw no sappers. They had no loopholes, excepting for 3 apertures, which we made with difficulty when we were told in the morning that we were to defend the farm. Our pioneers had been sent to Hougoumont the evening before, so they had no scaffolding or means of making any, because they had burnt the carts basically in the night before. And when he talks about scaffolding, we're talking about to be able to create sort of firing platforms so that they could fire over the wall. Our loopholes, if they may be thus termed, were on a level with the road on the outside, and later in the day the outside and later in the day the enemy got possession of one of the near the pond and began to fire upon us. Now I'm not sure where the pond is, but it sounds like the French managed to basically use the loophole that they made against them. So interesting how this isn't as well defended or prepared as Hougoumont. So that shows you something in the mindset that they definitely felt that Hougoumont would have to be the better protected place. So this is, though, very important. This is a forward position, forwards on the slope, in the centre of Wellington's position. So you can see this is the slope here, the ridge, and it drops down. That's the sort of, we're on the forward slope now. You can see how it's probably 200 meters down the slope from the ridge. So it was going to be manned, this position, by a few hundred Hanoverians. They're from the 2nd Light Battalion of the King's German Legion. It was going to be commanded by Major Baring. Major Baring was he would go on to make an account of the battle, and he was one of the chief information guy, what they call them, sources for Lieutenant Cyborn when he does his account in his history of the battle that was in 1844. Bering, for example, talking about what does the battle begin? Well, Bering believes that the battle starts shortly after 11 a.m. Not sure when that was. And so we've had now, if you remember, we've had a discussion that the battle began at 11:20. We've had a discussion that it was before 12 o'clock, so sometime between 11:20 and 12 o'clock. We've heard it being 11:50. Bering's now saying shortly after 11 a.m. So we're kind of in that sort of, it's anywhere between 11:20, 12 o'clock is when it starts. And he says that it starts because he could hear it begin over here at Hougoumont, which he can just see. If you were here, you can just see the trees over there is where the battle would have begun for him. At that time as well, he would stand to his men, and they moved into the orchard. And so they come out of these walls into these this orchard here, and this is the direction that they're expecting an attack from. Now he says that the farmhouse is in a slight hollow. I suppose you could say. I'm not sure if that is possible. He says the farmhouse is in a slight hollow, so the ridge to the south hid any advancing. Okay, so he says the ridge to the south hid any advancing enemy. So what he's basically saying is that from this position here, the ridge to the south, which is this ridge here, hid any movement from behind it. So I can see what he's saying there. That sort of ridge there's a sort of a very subtle ridge, and if you were down here, upside down, about here, it won't let me do it. Oh, there you go. That ridge there makes it impossible to see what's coming from La Belle Alliance. Oh, we got a nice rainstorm coming across now. This is live weather, by the way, so this is June the 11th when we're talking. This is live. So he says as well at this point, we're at La Haye-Saint, and we're Major Bering, and he says the few skirmishers open their attack, so the French tirailleurs start to probe in front. There's like a cloud of skirmishers in front of the French line, and they kind of move forward, and they're operating often operating in pairs, one firing, one loading, moving around together. Remember, these crops are quite high, and they're moving forward, trying to get deny the enemy or enemy skirmishers' positions. So he's saying that these skirmishers start with their attack, and he orders his men to lie down. Presumably in the orchard, not to waste their fire and wait for them to get closer. The first shots is an interesting. He talks about the first shots from the French cut the reins of his horse. So he's obviously on a horse out here at the time, And the subsequent shots killed Major Bosseville. Hopefully that's how you pronounce it, which was his second in command. And that's what these skirmishers did. They would there'd be a nuisance. They're trying to sort of come forwards, but when they're firing, they're targeting officers. They're targeting officers or sergeant majors or anybody who's deemed to be giving commands. So anybody who's on a horse is likely to be an officer, and they would target him. So it looks like that's what happened. He's on his horse. He's getting shot at, and one of his officers, his second in command, is killed. Now this weather's getting pretty bad. I might just take off this live weather for now. Oh. And let's now at this time as well, the skirmishers are sort of the forwards cloud in front of this is infantry, and Major Baring starts to report that 2 columns of infantry start moving towards this position over the ridge. So we're down here. So presumably they're coming down here towards his position. And he says that 1 column would attack the buildings, and 1 column would attack the orchard. And because these men in the orchard are outnumbered, he orders them back, and they retreat to the barn, which is here. So presumably they come streaming back in through these doors. And at this point, Baring's horse is shot from him. Again, he's been targeted by the skirmishers. And the attacking French column were from the 1st Corps of Rail. So they're from probably Bechelou's division on this side, the right-hand side here. So standard practice at the time is an artillery bombardment that would precede a infantry advance, and so a chain of skirmishers would approach the target to harass the defenders and test for any weak points, and then the mass columns would come in and press home the assault. And so you get this similar sort of pattern. We've had it at Hougoumont. They opened with some sort of bombardment. Well, they would have done if they could see the chateau, but they did open up on some targets. They then have skirmishers going in, followed by more regular troops. And around about this time, Lieutenant Colonel von Klenke, he arrives with his Lüneburg battalion, and he gives support to Baring. And that means that Baring can go on the counter-attack, and he pushes the French back again away from the farmhouse. And there's reports of French cuirassiers in this area. They're forming up in front of the Hanoverians to the side of the orchard. So presumably somewhere around here. Now, not sure what cuirassiers will do in trying to get into the building, but they're here to make sure that you're sort of kettling them into the buildings. And at this point, Captain George Mayer, he reports that the French were moving into the garden at the rear. So he's the French are coming around and they're trying to get into the garden at the back here. And Mayer orders his men back into from the garden into the house. So at this point, we're looking at the control on the outside has gone to the French. The orchard is now in control of the French. They've got support from French cuirassiers. And they forced Bering and Lundberg's men into the buildings. And then we hear about so the main assault then becomes trying to attack this position here through these barn doors. Now, there's meant to be a missing barn door around this place because it was burnt down, and you get bodies piling up in this doorway, blocking the entrance. Bering's getting more horses shot from underneath him. But the French attacks on this position are getting thwarted. And the French then start, because they can't get in, they start using incendiary devices, setting light to the farm with some incendiary shells. And more support comes. Nassau troops arrive to support the position. And when we get to this is the sort of again, it's an ongoing two and four swinging battle. The final assault on the farm takes place around about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and the French, they've basically noticed that there's a diminishing amount of fire coming. They're essentially running out of ammunition here, and they would push through the assault through this door, through the back door, and would eventually win possession of it. So that is just to give you a sort of a background. Just remember that in the background, that sort of wave of assaults happening here. And over here at where this monument is, was the gravel pit. 2 companies of the 95th Rifles would hold this position. They're the ones who are armed with the Baker rifle, remember, and these are Sharps rifles, if you think of it in terms of Sean Bean. The 1st Battalion was deployed close to the farmhouse, and they basically formed up along this sort of hedge and in this sort of gravel pit in this area here. This road would have been blocked. They had an abatis across here, and the gravel pit, I think, is quite shallow. It's not like a deep quarry, but it had a sort of a lip and provide cover, and then it enables the riflemen to sort of lie down and be protected. It was deep enough, basically, that they could stand in the pit and not be hit. So they would tend to fire their gun, then they could come down and they could load their gun standing up, and then they can come back up and fire. So think of it in that sort of terms of the size of the whole in this area. So the pit itself then, in a sense, protects the 95th Rifles because the cavalry won't fall into it or don't want to go into it. And this is the sort of position where the 95th Rifles would, again, they would defend and then pull back up onto the ridge here, and then go back down and reoccupy as waves of French attacks move in. They're sort of doing this all day long. Okay, so that's La Haison and the gravel pit. Right, we're coming up on 3 hours now that I've been streaming this, so I think I'll take a break here for the day, and I'll come back tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll look at the what's known as the second phase of the battle, when we'd look at d'Erlon's attack coming across these fields from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, and we'll see. We'll talk about how that phase of the battle pans out. So that will be tomorrow. So for everybody watching, thank you for that. I tend to stream on Twitch and YouTube around about midday UK time, so that will be around about 7 in the morning if you're on the eastern coast of the United States, or if you're in Asia, probably around about mid-afternoon, 6 o'clock, something like that. I know if you're in Australia, New Zealand, probably late in the evening. So you can join me if you want from tomorrow. If you have got Microsoft Flight Simulator, please join in, and we can fly around together in the Huey. And I will put up this video in a number of different, break it all up and put it into little edible chunks on YouTube. You'll see a playlist. They usually pop up all along the top here, where you can go and follow back some of the previous episodes. So on that note, thank you very much. I will see you in the next one.